Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. As the Lakers enter Game 3, Darvin Ham is once again in the headlines, and it's not good. We'll get into it next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how or where you get your podcast, it's always free. It's never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 50, I keep doing that. I'm just wishful thinking. 23,000 subscribers are hanging out and all wondering how Darvin Ham just continues to step in it the way he did at practice on Wednesday as the Lakers prepare for Game 3. We, of course, will help you get ready for that Game 3. Some news about who may or may not be playing, including Jared Vanderbilt and Christian Wood. And Andy, I know, has some numbers on Rui Hachimura that he wants to pass on because Rui needs to be bigger in this game than he has been throughout the series. Do want to let people know that today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, got a competitive side. I know Andy does as well, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. Join your friends and download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or Google Play. So, Andy, you may remember after Game 2 when Anthony Davis at his locker raised some eyebrows and got a little bit of attention when he said that the Lakers have long stretches where they don't know what they're doing on both sides of the ball. That was seen largely as a shot at the coaching staff.
Although, as we noted on Wednesday's show, it could have also been a shot at his teammates. The thought occurred to both of us.
Yeah, that could have some, but one thing that neither one of us thought was that it didn't have anything to do. Like maybe he's
it absolutely had something to do with Darvin,
and that's clear. If his teammates don't know what they're doing and aren't doing with it, that also goes back to the coaching staff. So, not surprisingly, the Lakers practice on Wednesday. They have some media availability, and of course, Darvin is asked about Anthony Davis's comments, and he says this: "I just think sometimes the plays don't turn out the way you think they should. The frustration sets in a little bit, but I don't think it's for us not being organized. I think that I have incredibly talented coaches all along my staff, and we pride ourselves on, whether it's practice or shoot around games or whatever, we pride ourselves on being highly efficient and organized. So I would just chalk that up to being frustrated. You know, it's an emotional game, the way it ended and all of that, but I'll agree to disagree on that one." He could have done a better job answering that question.
Here's the thing. It's obvious that Darvin is, clearly and I think wisely trying to prevent this from becoming an even bigger story in terms of anything that sounds like brewing tension between him and Anthony Davis, between him and the players, coaching staff and the team, all that sort of stuff, because they're in the middle of a playoff series where they are down 0-2. So it is, again, totally understandable that he would say something looking to diffuse this. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, though, it's pretty obvious that you need to say something that acknowledges the need to do better as a coaching staff. Even if you and your coaching staff aren't a quote-unquote problem, for the sake of argument, they're not a problem. For the sake of this sake of hypothetical.
And I do,
whatever.
He is clearly trying to stick up, right? I think as much for his staff as he is for himself.
It's probably a little bit of column A, a little bit from column B, but the point is not the time. Like, you need to be acknowledging the idea of we are down 0-2. I have a star player, the best player on the team, arguably, who's saying that we are having issues in the second half with the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing and vice versa. Even though I don't believe that we don't understand what we're supposed to be doing, clearly things did not go the way they were supposed to during this period where we blew a 20-point lead. And it is on me to make sure things like that don't happen again, because it all starts with me because I'm the head coach. That's all you have to say. You don't need to say, you know what, Anthony Davis is right. I've done a bleepy job coaching this team.
Man alive. Let's sit down and talk about how lousy a coaching job I've done this year.
Quite frankly,
we're so outclassed at this point, but between me and Mike Malone, that we might as well just hang it up now and just say Denver in 2 and we can all go home.
And because of me, I just want to make sure it's clear. It is my fault. Nobody's expecting him to say that. Frankly, it's not even helpful if he says that, because then all of a sudden all your players have to ask, do you agree with your coach that he's crappy? That doesn't help either. But what people are looking for in that moment, if you really want to diffuse it, is a combination of, we can get through this, which he was in so many words saying, but also there's an accountability on me to help us raise our game while we are down 0-2, because clearly we cannot afford mistakes of any kind. We need to be as mistake-free as possible. That's all you have to say.
You said at the beginning that part of what he's doing here, trying to do, is diffuse to not make it into something bigger. And I think broadly that's what he's going for.
Sure.
But like you say, the answer of, we work really hard as a coaching staff. We believe that our preparation is really good, but if we need to make sure, and we'll talk to Anthony and we'll regroup and make sure that if he has concerns about those things, that we're addressing them or whatever, something along those lines. I agree with you. It's the correct answer. And the answer he gave of we'll agree to disagree on that, or I'll agree to disagree on that, it essentially just says AD's wrong. And what he's doing when you say AD is wrong is throwing the players under the bus. You are saying this is their fault.
If it exists, it's on them, not me.
Right. This thing of, if they don't know what they're doing, they think if they're confused, this is on them, not me. Anthony Davis is wrong. They do know what they're doing. They do know what they're supposed to be doing and how they're supposed to execute. They're not doing it. I don't necessarily think that's exactly what Darvin meant. In terms that explicit. But when Anthony Davis says we don't know what we're doing on both sides of the ball, Darvin is right. Like, some of that is frustration. Some of that is we just blew a 20-point lead.
Yeah.
Some of that is I did not have a good, my teammates didn't get me the ball very well. Yes, totally understand that. You're right. We broke it down for Wednesday's show and all of these things. Guys can do a better job. There's no question. But Anthony Davis could have done a better job too. And the shots that he did have, he missed. And I understand he made 14 of his first 15 or whatever it is. But you know what? Great. The rest of them need to go in too. That's where, he is frustrated with his own performance, understanding full well the conversation is going to be Anthony Davis faded away again in the fourth quarter, which, by the way, it was in many circles. But you are telling Anthony Davis that he is wrong. The core thing that he is saying is he is wrong. That, our coaching staff is doing its job. The players aren't absorbing it. And you are wrong, Anthony Davis. I'm not mad about it. I understand you're frustrated. But if the idea is to diffuse the situation, to declare that the guy saying it is wrong, is a really bad idea. And I'll tell you, Andy, after the break, why it's even more problematic than it might otherwise seem on its face in just, like the press conference for a practice. We'll get into it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by eBay Motors, passion, drive, and patience. It's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for with eBay Guaranteed Fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
You and I, Andy, we talk a lot about how, generally speaking, coach speak, this and that, whatever. Like the other day, there was some coach speak going on about Darvin after game, like holding off on using all of his, and people freaked out and all that. So, my position was, calm down. This is generic postseason coach speak, designed to say nothing. Not everybody agreed. Fine, whatever. But generally,
I just understand why fans didn't believe him
completely.
That's what I get
completely. A lot of reasons dislike Darvin. I just think that was not, that was fine. But generally speaking, I default to, I don't generally care what they say to us. Like, why didn't the coach come out and destroy them? And like in the press, well, he might, I don't know what they said in the locker room, like things like that. Like what we get from the coaches, from the head coach is often very different than what the players get. And ultimately what the players get is more important than what we get. Now, that said, there are exceptions to this. One of the things that always struck me when we were, in locker rooms every day, going back to the Phil Jackson era and all that kind of stuff, there is less communication, direct communication between players and the head coach and all these things on a day-to-day basis than I think most fans would expect. Like, a couple of weeks ago, Doc Rivers, everybody was like, well, I'm sorry, what? When he was like, oh yeah, I haven't talked to Giannis about his calf yet. I haven't gotten any updates. Like, you're like, there isn't as much, not saying that guys don't talk to their star players and this and that, but I think people have a perception that like every day the coach and the stars are like together and they're doing stuff. And so when Anthony Davis says what he said, and Darvin comes back and says, I'm going to have to disagree with Anthony, two things are clear. First is he hasn't talked to Anthony Davis about it. Because I think, because I think at least that had they gone through this and talked about it, it would be the kind of thing that even if you say I'm not going to tell you, we don't need to talk about it. It's like, I'm going to discuss this. It's just my opinion. I'm going to discuss this with Anthony, or I've discussed, we talked a little bit about it. I found out what his concerns are, whatever it is. And I know where he's coming from, whatever it is. But the other thing is, because there's not as much communication as you think, like how Darvin responds to the media, what he is essentially saying, which is Anthony Davis is wrong about his perception of what's going on here. Even if they did talk to each other about it, he's now undercutting all that stuff because he's putting something out there publicly that undercuts Davis's position. And it's easy to overstate how big of a thing like sort of PR and media management and all that stuff is. But a lot of the job actually is communicating to your players and your team through the media. And when you say something that's stupid to the media, you put your player in a position now where he's been told he's wrong and his feelings and his perceptions are incorrect. It's on them, not me. I've defended Darvin probably more than a lot of people, over the course of this season. This to me is kind of beyond it. Like I thought AD's comment was pretty pointed and tough to come back from if you're Ham. Maybe he realizes that, but this was a pretty unprofessional response in the sense that I think it shows a lack of competence in the position.
I mean, I have no idea if they've talked or not. They may have talked through stuff. I know they had a film session, so some of this stuff may have come up during film. And in Darvin's mind, in saying this, he may not have seen it as directly undercutting AD, because he's like, look, these are just things that get said. I'm going to agree to disagree, but I don't think it's that big of a deal because I think we're all on the same page. I still would not have said that.
But again, even if that's what he meant, there's, part of the gig is saying what you said, not what he actually said.
Well, of course, like I said from the beginning earlier on, there is a way to go about saying this, even if you want to say you disagree with AD, that they haven't been prepared. It doesn't change the fact that there were clearly things that went on wrong on the court when you blew a 20-point lead. And ultimately, that stuff has to begin with Darvin. Like, that's part of the job. And, again, getting back to the idea of just people wanting to see that accountability, see that piece of it, because, before we get on to some of the stuff with game 3 and the things that hopefully Darvin does adjust, the things that are being expected of him. We're in LA, and you and I, our main gig is the Lakers, but the work we do at 710, we cover a lot of the teams around LA, and we have spent a lot of time around Sean McVay, the coach of the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
Sean McVay, anytime anything goes wrong, the first person Sean McVay blames is himself.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it's very clearly not Sean McVay's fault. Things that happen on the field that are clearly not him. The first person he always points the finger at is himself. Do I think like I said, I don't think he's always being sincere, because I know there are times where I'm like, dude, I know
absolutely
that's not
you. He's,
but he gets the idea of to some degree protecting your players, but also the job begins with accountability. And there's always a piece of that should begin with me. Even if in my head, I'm thinking it's these dumb mother bleepers, they're the reason we lost this game. You always project the parts first, even before you get into things they need to do better. Even if you don't even get into specifics, you need to be putting forth the idea of it is on me as well to do a better job when we don't win. And I'm not saying Darvin has never done that, but I know he has not done it often. He has not done it often. And this was one of those times when it was right there, just a layup of, you know what,
man, we blew a 20-point lead. If this is what he feels like, I think we try as hard as we can to prepare as a staff, as with our players. But, when you blow a 20-point lead, we're doing something wrong here. Right. And,
maybe we prepare, but we don't communicate in game as well as we need.
Got to do better. Got to do better.
And again, it's obvious.
And I'm glad you went to McVay, because I have him written down. One of the last things on this topic is Sean McVay, because when you say accountability starts with me, he says, I got to do a better job. We got to do better. It's my fault. They say, like, what people do is in the locker room, they turn around and say, well, no, look at the coach. Coach is being accountable for things that aren't even his freaking fault. I missed that tackle. Sean McVay didn't miss that tackle. I did. I dropped that pass, not Sean McVay. And when they're asked the question, they say, no, this coaching staff did its job. This is on us. This is on us as the players. The players take more accountability.
Yes.
And I love that you went to McVay, because, I don't think he's a perfect coach, but he's real good at this part of it.
Oh, before we get to the game 3 stuff, you mentioned the PR aspect of this. Sean McVay is brilliant.
It's PR, but it's PR. PR sometimes has a negative connotation to it, like it's fake. It's communication.
Yeah.
This is communicating. Like, Darvin was communicating with Anthony Davis in that you don't think that quote's going to get back to AD. You are delusional. And what AD is going to take from that is, this bleeper doesn't think I know what I'm talking about, and is taking no responsibility for anything.
Yeah.
I don't know enough to say that this is like end of days type stuff for Darvin, but it is another indication of why he cannot be the coach next year. Let's talk about Rui Hachimura next, because you did some great research on that. We'll get to it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get things off our chest, big or small. Things can start to get to you. They add up, and it's important to let it out with someone unbiased in your life. You know, we do this show as example. We hope that it is a nice stress release, like just something to take your mind off your troubles. And, you know, I love the Lakers. You love the Lakers. But at the same time, I don't care how much you bleed that purple and gold, there are more pressing issues in your life. And it's really important to have a professional around that you can speak with about those issues. I know, speaking from experience, therapy helped me and my family during a really difficult period in our life. And family therapy is a different experience for everyone. And if you are thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible, suited to your schedule. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba.
Locked On Lakers also brought to you by DoorDash. Like many of you out there, I use DoorDash all the time to have food from places that I love brought to my house when I do not feel like going to get it myself. It is a great service, and you know we use it a ton, and it's convenient and it's fast and it's reliable and it's all of those things. But what I did not understand and what I did not know, Andy, was that DoorDash, like Mother's Day is rolling around, you can take care of all of your Mother's Day shopping in one spot on DoorDash. Like when you want, like gifts of all kinds, flowers, grocery stuff, like, fun specialty foods, all whatever it might be, you can take care of that on DoorDash. So if you want to make your mom smile, you want to make your wife smile, anyone that requires Mother's Day stuff, start Mother's Day with flowers or surprise her with gifts from the brands that she loves, delivered the very same day with DoorDash. Get all your Mother's Day gifts in one place. 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 plus on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now. You do that with code LOCKEDONNBA. That's Locked on NBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. So, Andy, Rui Hachimura has not played well through 2 games. He's got 11 points total. He's 3 of 11 from the floor. The 10 points are too low. The 11 shots are too low. He was 1 of 7 from the floor in game 2. But a lot of stuff that's not quite gone right for the Lakers. But in terms of individuals who have really not performed where the expectations were high, I would say Rui is probably at the top of the list through 2 games.
Yeah, and as the Locked On Lakers resident Ruiologist, I've been a big proponent of his. So I've been thinking about just sort of what's been going on with him. I looked up his touch numbers, and it's pretty stark how little he's actually getting the ball. Like post All-Star break, just to give people an idea of this. Post All-Star break, Rui was averaging 38.6 touches per game, 22.2 front court touches, 2.6 paint touches, and was getting 0.418 points per touch. Number 1 on the team. That was post All-Star break. 2 playoff games, averaging 31 touches per game, down to 12 front court touches per game, down to 1.5 paint touches per game, and down to 0.161 points per touch. Now, I want to make it clear from the outset, no matter what Rui has in terms of his responsibilities, how often he gets the ball, whatever, he needs to be better, period. Like full stop, that's not arguable. But I could not help but notice how little he's actually been utilized over these first 2 games. Like, I was wondering if it was my imagination. Then I looked at it, I'm like, no, it's actually pretty starkly different. Also, his usage percentage is down about half post All-Star break to the postseason. Like, he really is not getting the ball.
I will say, I some of that is probably scheme. A lot of that is Denver. And one of the things when you're Rui, the advantage, when we go back to the beginning of the season, you were one of the logic of it was strong. Like one of the reasons that you put Rui on the bench to start the season is because he would have more opportunities to be a really good offensive player coming off the bench, because either LeBron or AD are likely off the floor at that point. You're not sharing the touches as much and all of that stuff. And you're playing against a lot of reserves. So, Rui is going to get to cook a little more than he would in the starting lineup. The flip side of that is when he is on the floor with LeBron and AD, he is getting whoever that defender is, he's getting the third, fourth best defender, whatever, on the floor. Like, somebody's got to pick up LeBron, somebody's got to pick up AD. D'Angelo Russell might draw some attention, obviously, size and matchups and whatever, but he's not getting the premier defender in these things. And so when he cuts, when he moves away from the ball, when the double comes to AD or to LeBron, he's more open and all these other things. Denver doesn't really afford Hachimura that opportunity, because other than Jokic, who has gotten significantly better, by the way, as a defender, everyone in their starting lineup can defend a little bit. I guess Murray's probably is Jamal Murray the worst defender they've got? I mean,
Jamal Murray in the starting five. Yeah, I think it's Jamal Murray.
Okay, so but he's not. There's no situation which he'd be guarding Rui anyway. So
other than you force a mismatch,
right? So and you bring in guys off the bench and all these other things. So that this is a solid defensive team with a lot of guys who. And enough defensive structure that a lot of the things that shake Rui free under different circumstances don't work in this situation. So, I mean, this is one of the things about role players that they talk about in the postseason. Like when you play better teams, this is why it's harder for a lot of these guys. So I think it's probably a combination of scheme and Denver and Rui needing to adjust to that. But you're right. Whatever the reasoning is, the net effect on the Lakers offense is really bad, because like you said, the defense in the first two games has been good enough to win in both games, particularly in game 2, 101 points on Denver's floor. Part of the reason the Lakers aren't winning these games, obviously the offense isn't good enough, and that is a lot of Rui.
Well, and the other thing too, but before we get to the one other big adjustment that I want to see Darvin make, with the idea of Rui not getting the ball, of the starting five, like Rui is a talented scorer, and I think there are certain defensive matchups that he can be good in. He's had a streak, although it has not come out in the playoffs, where he'd been very good on the glass. Rui, though, of the starting five, is the most one-dimensional player in the starting five.
I agree.
And I think it's by a pretty decided margin. If you're not getting Rui the ball, then he really is not bringing a ton to the table other than being a battering ram for Jokic. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're not really
great highlight reel.
Yeah. You're not giving Rui the opportunity to really do the thing that he brings to the table most. So again, he needs to be better when he gets the ball. If the opportunities are more limited, he needs to make the most of them.
If it's a movement issue, he needs to find a way to shake himself free, read the floor better, all these other things.
In rewatching the game, like most of what it seems like he's doing is just offensively, just slipping screens for LeBron and then drifting to the corner, and not really doing anything.
What's the other adjustment?
I've said this heading into the playoffs. I actually said this as we heard news that he might be activated and available. Gabe Vincent. It's become incredibly clear. Darvin needs to choose between Spencer Dinwiddie and Gabe Vincent. He needs to pick one of them, give one of them extended minutes, and the other doesn't play. Because right now he's been spending this time trying to get both of them going. But neither one of them plays enough minutes, or I think enough extended minutes. Like their minutes are often very choppy. Like one will play the last 4 minutes of the first quarter, and then the other one will come in to start the top of the second quarter. Like neither gets any real extended run in what feels like an effort by Darvin to get both going. And as a result, I think neither are getting going. And it's creating a bench unit where two guys aren't bringing anything to the table. If I had to choose, I would probably choose Gabe Vincent just because I think he is more comfortable in his lane right now than Dinwiddie's been in his. But honestly, if Darvin chose Dinwiddie, I would be okay with it. I think you can make an argument for it. The offense needs juicing. Dinwiddie has an higher offensive ceiling. He's also bigger than Vincent, like whatever. But he needs to choose one of them and sit the other. It's becoming incredibly clear.
I would play Vincent just because I think the utility is there more than Dinwiddie. I mean, the bigger issue is you've got to play one of them, and neither of them are playing well enough to really want on the floor.
No, they aren't. But I also think Darvin is not putting either one of them in a position to flourish the way he's looking for. Like, maybe it feels like he's trying to get either one going. And as a result, he's not getting either going.
I'm not sure he's actually really trying to get either one of those guys going. I think he's trying to get by with either one. I don't think he's like, this is like playing, like, it's like with this idea of like, I can generate something out of it. I think he's trying to cover the minutes that he feels like need to be covered with guys that are both options that you wouldn't
then do a better job covering the minutes.
Maybe
like the approach.
I would just pick one. I agree with you. I'd pick one guy.
The approach
just
makes no sense.
Before we go, both Wood and Jared Vanderbilt are out for game 3, are listed as out. It is possible they could rise from the dead, I suppose, but they are both listed as out for game 3 after at least the prospect that they both might be active. So
neither one of them did any contact at practice on Wednesday. Doesn't make it impossible for them to be active for game 3.
Unlikely.
Seems very unlikely.
Highly unlikely. Anyway, Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out, see the show, and please make sure to join us after game 3. We'll see if the Lakers are still in this bad boy, if the series has actually started, because everybody's won on their home floor, and we'll see everyone later.